Hey everybody, this is Steve.
And I'm Matt.
And this is Steve and Matt Talk. Our first topic today is going to be the NFL and the different matchups and rumors you might hear going around. The first biggest one, being a Philadelphia fan, is Deshaun Jackson coming back to Philly from Washington. Matt, what are your thoughts first off?
My thought is whether or not Deshaun Jackson goes to Philly, stays in Washington, all I want is him out of the NFC East, considering I'm a Giants fan.
Well, I guess it depends on who you are and what you think about him, but personally I think he's somewhat of a cancer in the locker room. You look at guys like him and Des Bryant, and you wonder, are they a cancer, or are they helping, or are they kind of neutral in the locker room? I think wide receivers tend to be divas, and I think Deshaun Jackson is a perfect example of that. Like, his attitude and his work ethic are, there's something really left to be, something that, he really needs to work on is what I'm trying to say. But I do think that there's a pretty good chance of him coming to Philadelphia next year from Washington. I think he doesn't trust his quarterback in Kirk Cousins. I think he'd rather be back on the Eagles and trying to make a shot at the playoffs.
And in my personal perspective from the NFL, how I look at it as Deshaun Jackson, he's definitely a playmaker. He definitely has made some key plays in his NFL career. And in Washington, he honestly rarely sees the football, and it's honestly shocking to me considering how big of a playmaker he really is. So I think there's definitely a good chance that he could return to Philadelphia next year, just for the fact, especially with a young quarterback in Carson Wentz, especially he's been finding Jordan Matthews, who's been his big target this season already. I think Deshaun Jackson would make a good fit back in that Philadelphia offense.
So, do you think receivers at a certain point in their career go for the money or for the ring? Meaning that, do you think if Deshaun Jackson, let's say, got a smaller deal from Philadelphia, but there's a greater chance of him making the playoffs, do you think he would take that over more money in Washington?
I don't think... It's very difficult to say, especially, we don't know Deshaun Jackson, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to say.
I'm just saying, if you were a wide receiver, what do you think? What do you think most receivers tend to go?
If I was a wide receiver, I'd want both. Beyond the point, though, if I was a wide receiver, I'd be chasing the ring. Obviously, you make enough money. But I don't think a lot of players in the NFL look at it that way to go chase a ring. There's some players, like quarterbacks, for instance, Tom Brady, whose wife makes a lot more than he does regardless, but who, want to limit his contract to go out and get other players to help him win a championship. And that's why New England's so successful. But guys like Deshaun Jackson, it seems like all they're interested in is money. That's all they, it's their career. Making millions of dollars is what they want to do. But there's the love of the game, which is missed in many sports.
Yeah, that's a good point. You really wonder what these players are playing for. Some come in with dreams of a ring and really play for the money, and I'm sure it's vice versa. I'm sure some people come in for the money, and then they want the ring. But did I just repeat myself?
Who cares?
Okay.
We can edit.
Well, regardless.
We're keeping that.
I don't remember. But I think Deshaun Jackson at this point in his career is really just looking for a ring more than money. And I feel like maybe in the beginning, most players really just want to solidify their financial needs with getting a big contract. But I think as you go on, you probably would want a ring. But I'm sure there's other people that are willing to debate that say, as soon as I come into the league, I want to win a ring as fast as I can. I don't care about the money or whatever. But, you wonder what kind of player Deshaun Jackson is and what he would really be chasing after.
In all honesty, if Deshaun Jackson has respect for himself as a player, he either stays in Washington or goes to another team that is not Philadelphia.
Really? Why do you say that?
Just because, they had that whole thing with, him being in a gang, him causing problems in the locker room. And that's the main reason why Chip Kelly decided to let him go. Regardless, that's the Philadelphia Eagles organization that let him go. Why come back? Why?
Well, you can make the case then for Jarrell Green Beckham because he has problems with the law. Philadelphia, it seems like here in Oakland are the two places that most criminals or criminal behavior type players
That's not
play.
true. That's not true. Dallas takes a lot.
And
of
Dallas, hey, with Greg Hardy and everything, but it feels like, the NFL almost, they don't, at a certain point when you reach a certain level in the NFL, like look at players like Adrian Peterson, with all the conflicts that he had to go through with his son and everything. I feel like at a certain point you reach a certain level where like, all right, we know this guy's doing bad things, but he's a great player and we don't want to lose him based on that. I mean, there's a lot of players that happen. Mike Vick, Terrell Pryor, but that really, he didn't really end up on a great team.
Hey, he's looking good as a receiver.
But I want to move on to another topic now. Another NFC East team, the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott, looking good. Romo, though, is trying to come back, I think, for Week 8 against the Eagles. Do you see that happening? Do you see the Cowboys putting in Romo?
Well, there was talk this week about Jerry Jones, the owner of the team, saying that, even after Dak Prescott's led the Cowboys to a 4-1 record, still coming out and saying Tony Romo is the number one quarterback to his football team.
Yeah, I wonder, though, if Romo, like, obviously I feel like Romo's just trying to get one ring before he goes out. But to me, it's like, what cost? He's taken so many injuries. He just got injured this season, in preseason let alone. He took a big hit, injured his back, which he's always had problems with. Do you want to be paralyzed and not be able to, like, live out the rest of your life just to attain the ring? Or can you get a ring with coaching? Like, is he okay with that? But I see his future in the NFL with the Cowboys organization, but I don't see him, as the star quarterback anymore. I think Dak is going to lead that. But we'll have to see.
Hey, I mean, honestly, you can still win a ring being a backup quarterback.
This is true.
So
Defense and run definitely, I think, wins Super Bowls. The pass helps. With that O-line, and you have a great runner in Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, anything's possible with that team.
I mean, how I look at it is, Jerry Jones is the one who came out and said, okay, Tony Romo's his guy. Obviously, Jerry Jones has done a lot of investing in Tony Romo. Even with all the injuries he's had, this guy cannot stay healthy to save his life. But regardless, it's Jerry Jones who came out saying that. The real question is, how is Jason Garrett, the actual head coach of that team, how does he feel about that? Like, if that team, say they win out coming up to Tony Romo's first game back, how do they play that if the team's 6-1 coming into Tony Romo's return?
And this reminds me a lot of the 49ers. They had the same problem with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick. By the time Alex Smith was ready, I believe it was almost the Super Bowl, or was it the playoffs, where Alex Smith was finally uninjured and Kaepernick was winning them so many games they just left him in. You wonder if the Cowboys are going to get to that point where, like, all right, Dak's been winning. We don't want him to not be hot. Because it seems like the kid's hot. He hasn't even thrown an interception yet. And he looks to stay hot with his team. You really wonder, is Romo the right choice to put in?
Yeah, it's definitely a big question. But back to your point about Alex Smith. Alex Smith actually was ready to come back after the first 2 games that Kaepernick played.
Was that the end of the season, though?
Nope. It was like middle of the season.
Really?
I think Alex Smith started that team like 5-0 or
yeah.
something like that. And then they brought, I think Smith had a concussion that year. And then there was and then they started Kaepernick for a couple games. Smith was ready to return, and Jim Harbaugh decided to keep Kaepernick in. And as much as Kaepernick, did his job, did his part, that was Alex Smith's team that he was leading, that he led to the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah, and as if you're a 49ers fan, you have to think, if Alex Smith was in, would we have gotten as far? And if we did, would he have won the Super Bowl? Because, you didn't, as a 49ers fan, you didn't obviously win that year. The Ravens did. So you kind of wonder what could have been. I mean, would you have made it that far? And if you did, what would Alex Smith have done differently than Kaepernick?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, honestly, if you look at it, though, too, I mean, having, or trying to figure out your quarterback situation, it's definitely difficult, especially for the fact, look at Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler last year.
Mm-hmm.
Osweiler, who was in while Peyton Manning was hurt. When Peyton was ready to come back in, it was around playoff time. They said, hey, this is his last go-around. This is you. Brock Osweiler didn't take that so easy, and he left the following year, went to Houston this year.
Yeah, but I feel like that was an easier decision for the coach. Obviously, Peyton Manning wanted to retire with the ring. I mean, if he had won, the year against the Seahawks, I think he would have retired that year. I didn't even think he cared about his records anymore, all the records he broke. I just really think he wanted that ring so he could retire. And I think that was almost a no-brainer. But when you have another quarterback that's only a little bit older than, a rookie or your second string, you always think, we can always go back to him. It's not his last year. And that's a harder decision, I think, to make.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you to a standpoint. But at the same time, though, say Dallas decides to go back with Romo. I mean, not off the top of my head do I know Dak Prescott's contract situation. But okay, say the team's 6-1, they decide, let's go back with Romo. Romo plays him so on. We don't even know. He'll probably get hurt week 8 for all we know with his body. But regardless, okay, say they go back with Romo. Well, what if Prescott decides to leave?
Yeah, that's a big thing,
and it's definitely tough. And it's like, you look at it when the Niners got rid of I think they traded him. But regardless, Kaepernick, who they thought was the guy, and then they get rid of Alex Smith. Alex Smith's playing great in Kansas City.
And 49ers are now back with Colin Kaepernick, but he's not even their starting anymore. He's their second string.
No,
right?
He's starting this week.
I know he's starting, but he wasn't their original first
he was their
starter.
Second. He was their second string.
Who was their starter? I forget.
Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad because, the 49ers just a few years ago were so good, but that's just football. And the crazy thing about it is how you can change from being so good to so bad to so good again in such a quick amount of time compared to other sports, especially basketball.
Oh, yeah. I mean, personally, though, if I'm Jason Garrett, I kind of look like him with the red hair. But if I'm Jason Garrett on that sideline, if my team is still winning with Dak Prescott, you cannot break up the chemistry that's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's another big thing, It takes a while for receivers to get used to their quarterback. The timing's there and everything. That could be big, but these receivers have played with Tony Romo before. I'm pretty sure all of them, if not most of them, have. So they probably are a little bit more used to Romo, but it might take a few games to get back in the groove of what Romo's doing compared to what Dak's doing.
Somebody who has not played with Tony Romo yet, though, is that star running back they have.
Ezekiel Elliott, and you bring up a good point. Will that mean anything?
See, that's what the two big things for Dallas this year have been: that star rookie quarterback and their star running back. Obviously, running behind the greatest O-line in the NFL.
The greatest O-line I've ever seen.
The guy is still playing, though, so.
And the thing that I think, he's not going to have a problem with is he's a power back. He's not a wideout. He's no Darren Sproles. He's just a power back, and he's usually going to take a handoff either inside or outside, not really going to be throwing too many screens to him. At least I don't think so. And even if he was, I don't think the chemistry would be a big step for him.
Yeah, but, the thing, I get the receiving and all, but at the same time, a handoff's a big portion in the NFL.
Yeah,
too,
and that brings up a good point. I guess I didn't think about it that way. The timing of that, that could cause a fumble or two. But Ezekiel Elliott, he's had so much experience playing football. I think he'd be fine.
Yeah.
So moving on, as a Giants fan, do you think the league is out to get Odell?
It's definitely tough. I think there's a 50-50 split. I think they meet down the middle. As much as Odell, since it's gone way back to Week 15 a season ago when that whole controversy between Josh Norman started, seems like Odell just never got his head straight. He had a couple games early in the season. He was making some plays. Then he saw Josh Norman again early in the season, and it just seems like he can't get his head straight. At the same time, do I think, there were a couple calls against Minnesota, his personal foul call, which was...
This was in Week 4, right?
Yeah, I think it was complete BS, but, that I'm not trying to be biased here either, and even a lot of people have said that call was BS. Tom Coughlin came out and said that was not a good call by the officials.
Well, I guess as an official, you're always looking for the instigator, and it seems like Odell was instigating a lot. You could say Josh Norman was too, but this is also a different game.
Well, I'm also talking Minnesota, though. Odell Beckham, he was the one hit out of bounds.
Yeah.
He got Xavier Rhodes, I believe, was the player who hit Odell, and he's the one who came up and hit him late, but you're going to call Odell for unsportsmanlike conduct. It's not right. I get Odell, has his issues with keeping calm, obviously. Honestly, I like the fact, how he played last week. He just kept his mouth shut, played football. that's what he needs to do. That's what he has to keep doing. At the same time, the NFL, the officials are not being fair to him.
I agree. There is some truth to that, but he does need to calm down because the officials are going to keep riding him until he does calm down. The kid plays a lot of heart. I gotta respect that, but sometimes he lets his emotions get in the way of his playing. I mean, it does step up his game to the next level. It seems like when he's mad, he's definitely running with more of a purpose. But at the same time, it could cause something stupid. It could cause a fumble. It could cause a fight. His emotions can't let him get in the way, that much.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's definitely. I lost my thought, but we can edit that. But
Well, let's move on to Washington. Jordan Reed just got hurt, I believe, right? I think he's out with an ankle. Anyways, my point is, do you think Jordan Reed could be the next Gronkowski?
I would not compare him to Gronkowski. I think he is definitely an elite tight end in the league. Obviously, there's not many anymore because it seems like it's become a wide receiver league.
Yeah.
Anymore. I mean, it just doesn't seem like many quarterbacks are using the tight ends. Like, if you look at Aaron Rodgers, for instance, he's not using the tight end much. Obviously, Richard Rodgers, he made that one great catch at the end of the year, but I was expecting him to be the next big thing, and Rodgers never finds him.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of the old school quarterbacks, the 32 and older quarterbacks, your Drew Brees, your Tom Brady's, even your Eli Manning's like to utilize the tight end a lot more than the newer quarterbacks.
Well, it's actually funny that you say that because I used to see a lot of that where more quarterbacks, the older quarterbacks like to use those tight ends. But I've seen recently, exclude Tom Brady because Tom Brady obviously has the best duo of tight ends in the NFL with Rob Gronkowski and Martellus Bennett.
Unbelievable.
But guys like Eli Manning and Drew Brees, it could also come from the fact that there's no talented tight ends on either team. And that's what I was going to say.
There's no Jimmy Graham on the Saints anymore.
Yeah, and there's no Jeremy Shockey. There's no Kevin Boss. Different tight ends that Eli used to be his favorite target.
Yeah, and I remember last year he was trying to throw it to Donnell a lot, but he just didn't seem that quick. You give him the ball, he was good for only a few yards, run after catch.
Yeah, and it's just not there anymore where the tight ends are being used. Tight ends are honestly being used for more blocking. And, you as an Eagles fan actually kind of exclude from that one, considering it seems like you guys are using the tight end a lot.
I feel like we're not using it as much as we used to. I remember Selk used to be a big threat. Ertz also was hurt the past few weeks, and Selk's not the kind of receiver that Ertz is. But I feel like as Carson Wentz gets more comfortable, he's definitely going to be throwing to Ertz a lot more. Ertz has been wide open on a few plays. The kid's quick for a tight end. Mm-hmm. He's a lot, he's not as husky, it looks like, as Brent Selleck. Brent Selleck's also a little bit older. Got that daddy weight. But, I think Carson Wentz, once he definitely gets in the groove, he definitely likes to throw to Ertz, especially with Jordan Matthews is, dropping catches.
Yeah, well, you also have... you have three dominant tight ends, really. You have Ertz, Brent Selleck, and then that new kid who's he's looking pretty good at.
Oh, I forget his name.
Yeah, so do I. What a true Eagles fan, everybody! Give it up, give it up.
I know I think he's a bald white dude. That's about all I know.
That's nice. That's a good description.
There's not enough of them on the team. So, do you think Cleveland is ever going to get a win? Or are they going to be like the 2008 Lions and go 0-16? You think it's their year to go 0-16?
It's so tough to say because this team just looks dreadful.
It's a shame,
It's brutal to watch, and it's just imagine if they didn't trade that pick to the Philadelphia Eagles, they could have took Carson Wentz. I'm
glad they didn't.
Who knows how that could have panned out, but it is.
But then again, you don't know if Carson Wentz would. Carson Wentz, I think you can put almost any team he's going to shine. But would he be shining as bright with Cleveland? I don't know.
That would definitely be a big question because, there's obviously certain questions like if Tom Brady was a New York Giant, would he still be Tom Brady? You can put any guy in any category. But the reality is these players play where they are now and they're playing, how they play. I agree with what you said. It's definitely questionable how would have Carson Wentz, if he went to the Browns, would he have fit there? especially with how bad of a team that is. Do we even know how good he would be? I mean, there's definitely questions, but at the same time, you could have built around him.
He's definitely a franchise quarterback.
See, Carson Wentz got lucky because he went to the right team who was, honestly, they are a couple pieces away from being completely built, if not already built, but they were just looking for that quarterback, and they had everything else.
Well, I think Philadelphia still needs a couple better receivers. I mean, if Jordan Mathis can hold on the ball, and if Darrell Green Beckham can shine, I mean, he's tall. He's 6'5". That's Calvin Johnson type height. I mean, he has the body for it. He can catch pretty well. He just needs to kind of put more focus into his football, it looks like. It looks like he's having a lot of problems outside of the game. Socially, like with this, I think he has a criminal record. He just does. It seems like he's also like a cancer in the locker room, or can be. If they could get Deshaun Jackson back and have a deep threat, that could really open the running game for people like Ryan Matthews, who needs to start holding on to the football.
Yeah.
I mean,
now here's the real question for you as an Eagles fan. Picture this: Chip Kelly was never there. Doug Peterson came straight over. Picture your Carson Wentz, Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, and Shady McCoy, all together with that defense.
I mean, I think it would look a little. I don't know. I mean, is Ertz still on the team?
Ertz is still on the team.
So we're saying we still have like all the same weapons.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that could be a Super Bowl winning team, or if not close. I mean, they worked as a great trio.
I think that could have been a Super Bowl team with Sam Bradford if all those weapons were still there and that defense is still there.
Credit to Sam Bradford. I mean, it seems like any system he goes in, he didn't shine that well in Philadelphia. I mean, he was good, but he didn't shine. He's shining in Minnesota, and credit to him for picking up that playbook in 6 days.
Oh yeah, it's definitely incredible. But I mean, at the same time, there is a lot of credit to that defense.
Yeah, that defense is absolutely.
I mean, if you look at it, like, let's look at it for instance. Okay, when we look at the NFL a lot, we're looking at like head-to-head quarterback matchups. I mean, along with the teams, but like, when it's a Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning, certain things like that, we're looking at head-to-head quarterback matchups. So let's say we look at the head-to-head quarterback matchups in the 3-week span where I saw Sam Bradford take on Aaron Rodgers. Sam Bradford only had to put up 17 points on the board, which is incredible because most teams have to put up 35 points just to beat Rodgers.
Yeah.
And this kid only had to, the guy's... he's been around a long time, but regardless, he only had to put 17 points up against Rodgers. That's pretty impressive, though. Don't get me wrong; it's not easy in the NFL. Then he played the defending NFC champions the week later. Only had to Carolina only scored 10 points.
Yeah.
So, and then playing 2-time Super Bowl winning champion, my boy Eli Manning, and what they scored 10 points.
Yeah.
It's crazy how good this defense is.
Well, it's crazy to see in this generation of NFL football because it's such an offense-based thing. Offense sells tickets, but defense wins Super Bowls. I definitely believe that. Especially now, you're seeing, I mean, you really don't see many games under 20 points anymore.
Yeah.
Under 20 points, and you could say your defense is your defense is probably in the top 10 if you're scoring under 20 points a game.
Yeah.
Letting your opponent score under 20 points a game. But speaking of scoring points, the Chicago Bears. Is Cutler coming back?
I don't even know. I don't know.
I mean, is he even going to have a spot in the NFL?
It's definitely questionable. I mean, Brian Hoyer, in all honesty, the guy who couldn't put up a single point when he was a starting quarterback for Houston in the playoffs last year, he's honestly looked pretty impressive. And I always liked Brian Hoyer. I thought he was a good quarterback.
And you know what? I've actually have a soft spot for the Bears a little bit. I don't know why. I just always thought that they were like a pretty fun team to watch. Defense, kind of old school. When I think of the Bears, I always think of like Mike Ditka for some reason, and the '85 Bears.
The Bears.
Yeah. And I really like Jay Cutler. Just seemed like he didn't care. I mean, you could put him on a Super Bowl winning team, and the man looks like he doesn't care. You wonder why he's even playing. Is it just for the money at this point? I mean, the man shows no emotion when he throws an interception. I mean, it just makes me mad as a fan to watch somebody who doesn't care, and it would be heartbreaking for me as a Chicago Bears fan to watch that.
I mean, I don't really think Jay Cutler doesn't care. I think a lot of people just put a lot of criticism on him, and it's what you get when your team's bad in the NFL. The quarterback is the one who takes the most heat.
Yeah, it's just like the president of the United States. They get blamed for everything, but when everything goes good, he gets all the praise.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely. I really can't. I don't think that Jay Cutler is just out there playing for the money and doesn't care. I do think he cares. If you look at the Chicago Bears, they've kind of taken a downspill to their team. I mean, their defense isn't the same, especially since Urlacher retired. Their defense...
And they had so many weapons that they got rid of. They don't have anymore. They lost to free agency or traded away. I mean, you don't have Julius Peppers. Who's the, Eric Decker? No, Eric Decker was always a Jet. Who's the one, Brandon Marshall. Their running back, Forte.
Yeah, Forte.
I mean, they lost a lot of weapons that they used to have. And, as a fan, it almost makes it not as fun to watch when you don't have those weapons on the field.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of weapons, Weapon X's birthday was yesterday. Brian Dawkins, probably, one of my favorite safeties.
As a Giants fan, he is the most he is the one Eagle that I have the most respect for.
I think the best defensive player to ever play on the Eagles. I mean, and this is another thing me and Matt were talking earlier about this, was a lot of people are starting to compare Malcolm Jenkins to him. Do you think Malcolm Jenkins can ever fill those shoes that Weapon X did?
Absolutely not. This guy as much as Malcolm Jenkins does have a little bit of leadership in that locker room as well, probably as I think maybe one of the oldest on the teams, and he has a lot of veteran leadership. But just the way Brian Dawkins played, Brian Dawkins was hungry 24/7. This guy breathed football when he slept. Like he was something that I did not want to see. He's something that scared me when my team had to see him or Sunday night.
I think Malcolm Jenkins comes close, but he'll never be in the level that Brian Dawkins was at. I mean, no, he shows a lot of heart and soul. Definitely loves the team, loves all the guys, but I don't think anybody could lead a team and hype somebody up. And the athleticism, I think, of Brian Dawkins was more than Malcolm Jenkins. I mean, this guy, I remember one play, he was behind the receiver and couldn't, was far enough away where he couldn't make a tackle, but he kind of, punched the ball out. He, leapt forward and hit the ball out. The most athletic play I think I've ever witnessed in football to try to, save a touchdown and then ultimately give the ball back to the Eagles.
Yeah, I was actually watching a video. It actually might have been the one that you sent to me yesterday of where somebody said Brian Dawkins is a teddy bear.
Yeah.
On the outside, the guy has a soft spot of football, or the guy has a soft spot when he's outside of football, but when he was playing football, he was out to hurt people.
He was an animal.
He was out to hurt people. I think a lot of Philadelphia Eagles fans love Malcolm Jenkins and love what that Eagles defense is about. But I think if you ask any single Philadelphia Eagles fan who they think is better, I think it's Brian Dawkins. I think there's just more excitement from Brian Dawkins. This guy was just incredible to watch. And honestly, it's sad that he had to end his career in Denver and not in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I remember that Denver team. I think that was just when he got on the team right when Peyton Manning got on the team. Right?
I can't remember. My brain's a little shot.
It was in that 2011 era, I think. So I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. We'll edit that down.
You're wrong most of the time.
This is true. I suck at sports. Why are you listening?
You're like Gary Matthews.
In Los Angeles, Jared Goff.
Is he gonna start yet? Jeez.
I mean, why? It's at this point, I was, as an Eagles fan, I was like, why didn't they get Goff or try getting Goff? I mean, they spent all these draft picks getting Wentz. Now it almost seems like it was worth it because Goff isn't even starting, and you wonder why. I mean, is he really that bad?
Well, the question for you as an Eagles fan should have been, why didn't you get Goff? There should have been praise to Los Angeles for taking Goff.
Oh, I agree.
Because they could have took Wentz every year, and it would have been a whole different story.
And I'm happy that they didn't. I'm just saying, what if the Eagles did? But I guess I got to credit Howie Roseman. He's been doing a really good job as GM of the Eagles, really bringing the team back together. It looks a lot more like a playoff team than I've ever seen it.
Yeah, and, the Los Angeles Rams, in all honesty, I think they could be another type team, just like the Philadelphia Eagles, like I mentioned earlier, of how Philadelphia was set up for where they just needed that franchise quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the LA Rams, as much as, they've moved and everything and their team hasn't been there, Jeff Fisher's getting sick of this 8-8 team every year. But, they have had an issue trying to find a franchise quarterback since Kurt Warner. Mark Bulger was probably their last actual, franchise quarterback who they could count on. That was the last time they were in the playoffs. So it's the Rams. I think they're set up. What they're missing is their franchise quarterback. And the guy that they drafted, who they think could be that, is sitting on their bench right now.
Yeah. I just feel bad.
Like,
not bad, but, there's disappointment when you draft somebody number 1 overall thinking they're going to be your franchise quarterback, and now they're sitting on the bench.
they're a 3-2 team. Case Keenum started all 5 games for them. Case Keenum's not playing bad.
Mm-hmm.
There's no bad thing from Case Keenum that I've seen. But at the same time, very similar to Sam Bradford.
Mm-hmm.
His defense is keeping him in games and leading them to winning the last minutes or so. Like when LA was playing Arizona the one week, their defense is what won them that game at the end.
Yeah.
So the big thing is you go out, you get all the way up. I think you trade it like five draft picks just to get to the number 1 spot for Tennessee, and the guy who you drafted and got rid of all that stuff for is sitting on your bench.
Yeah, if the Eagles did that, there'd be riots in the street. I can tell you that.
Yeah, and we're talking Los Angeles now. We're not in St. Louis anymore. We're gonna see riots in Los Angeles if this kid doesn't start playing.
Yeah.
So Jeff Fisher, if you do not want another 8-8 season, you get this kid off the bench.
Strong words. Moving on. When do you think it's Cincinnati's time to shine in the AFC North? I mean, they have a huge playoff drought with playoff wins.